We are going to get started. Okay. All right. So anybody who wasn't here at the very beginning, welcome to ATOA. So usually you're used to seeing Barry Kostrinsky leading this group, but tonight Barry is in Provincetown in Cape Cod, and I am sitting in for him. I'm Fran Beeler, and a lot of you know me as a leader of the New York Artists Circle, but you don't perhaps know me as a board member of ATOA. So I'm here in that capacity. Barry left me some big shoes to fill when he asked me to sit in for him. This is our 72nd virtual open studios. ATOA was founded in 1975, and due to COVID, we switched to the virtual Zoom meetings. We are still planning to return to 12 West 12th Street when it's safe to gather. Currently, our talks are every Monday online. ATOA is a 501c3, and while all our talks are free, your contributions are greatly appreciated to help our organization run and grow. We have a website with links to our YouTube channel where previous talks can be found, and under calendar you can see what talks are coming up. Information on how to contribute is listed there as well, and I'll be putting all those links into the chat in a little while. If you would like to be a part of the talks, if you'd like to propose a talk, we are very interested in having you join us at our in one of our planning committee meetings, or you can send your proposal and we can present it for you, and you can contact Barry Kostrinsky about that, and I'm going to put his contact information into the chat in a little while also. So by the way, I got permission to tell you this little piece of news from Barry. So Barry went off on a vacation, a well-needed vacation. I think he's run every single one of the 71 weekly Zoom meetings of ATOA up until now, right? So he went away with his girlfriend of 12 years. And she's no longer his girlfriend. She's now his fiance. Apparently he got down on his knee and proposed. I know, is that sweet? So everyone can say a big congratulations to Barry.
Congratulations.
I know, it's really sweet. We're very excited tonight. We have a presenter, Arthur Clay, who's here with us from Basel, Switzerland. As he presents, as usual, please feel free to use the chat to ask your questions or make comments, or you can just speak up during the presentation and ask your questions. So we're going to run for about an hour tonight, including the Q&A. So you can unmute yourselves while when you have a question or comment, but otherwise everyone please mute, because otherwise it's very noisy. So let me introduce Arthur, because
this will be good. I'm always interested to see what people pick up.
Yeah, well, you made it easy for me, I have to say, because you had a lot of stuff on the internet, lots of sites and interesting stuff about your work. So Arthur Clay is an artist and collaborator. He was born in New York, but he twitters between his life in Basel and world presence, working between the borders of the arts, the sciences, and society. And maybe later he'll tell us what he means by that, because I picked that up from his site. As an artist, he's been awarded prizes for his performance art, media art, design, music, theater, and composition. He has exhibited in major museums across the world, and will have a solo retrospective this year, 2021. As an educator, he has taught over the past 10 years at various art schools and universities in Europe and Asia, Zurich, CERN, Seoul, Korea, Taipei. He is a collaborator for Virtual Switzerland, Festival for Virtual Arts. and acts as a consultant for the Seoul Bio Art Festival, an event platforming potentials between new technology in the life sciences and the new arts. So that said, I'm going to now turn it over to Art. So,
oh, that's great. Anyway, as it's open studio, I thought I would present a kind of a lecture which would show how my work is made, but also give a kind of an overview of what I do. Basically, I was born in New York and I grew up in New York, and I started by studying music. And behind all of this artwork, I'm actually a composer and a flute player. And but what really the relationship between the sonic arts was, if we look at fluxes, that they're time-based. So everything has a process, whether that's making a ceramic pot or creating a painting. It's the time process that in my work is the most important. So that's the relationship between music and the visual arts that I make. And what's also important is I explore new technologies as they come out. And by living in Switzerland, particularly, where new technologies is kind of a common practice here, because we're a kind of fine tech country. We only live by what we can invent. So that kind of falls nicely together. And also, it's kind of fun to explore the new, because as you know, if you're riding a trend, it's a bit easier to get a gig or to do something, although I love to fall back to paper and pen and just write music. So, but I like to be active in different areas. So I thought I would kind of open the box and show you how these things are related and how they're made. And also, at any time you have a question, please write it in the chat, or even, raise your hand, because I like to have conversations. I don't just want to lecture everybody on everything. Now I have, a lot of slides.
Well, I was going to jump in and ask a question, which is, do you want to share the screen or?
Yes, right. I will do that. I'll share the screen and then I'll start. Okay, so I'm going to begin with music and how it kind of starts and how you can apply it to the arts if you're interested in doing installations and things. So we'll learn a little bit about how to do that, but also see how I've applied it over the years in different areas. So, okay, so I'll see if I can do that. I'm just going to do my desktop. Don't read my mails. It's one of those dangers, I think. Okay, so I have to find, I decided to use this and up. Okay, good. Okay. I think, okay, can everybody see it?
I can see it, and I think that's a good indication.
Okay, good. Anyway, that's a portrait of me from a Korean artist, and basically he felt I was the lion guy who came into the situation, was able to really take hold and make things happen. So I would like to show that because that's nice. So first, I like to start with some theory. How we think about our works is important. Now, this is the beginning of it, is that if we look at this stage, we see there's a backdrop, right? And so the music being played is always projected outwards to the audience. So it's kind of like a one-way stream of sound. But, on the left side, we have the man-made concert hall, where this is one stream of sound going out to the audience. But in nature, if we're walking in a forest, we hear many different sounds from all over the place. We basically immersed in those sounds. And so, although I grew up and spent many years in these concert halls, I really prefer the kind of approach to acoustic environments where you're immersed and there's many sounds coming from all different directions, not only left and right, but also from bottom to top. So if we look at this man-made thing, the single source you see to your left, it always just goes right to the listener, and that's it. We call that frontal. But if we go to nature, we have multiple sources. So a lot of my work was to create multiple source audio pieces so that the people inside a museum would have a sense of belonging to the work through immersion. So here's a few examples. Okay, so this is her room, which is a listening space in Wiesbaden, where there's a museum. And this is an early work. It's very simple. So it's kind of like a line drawing, like a Mondrian or a Kandinsky. So people can go into the space, walk around, and they can pull on these little instruments, and they're basically rubber bands or elastic cables, which kind of let you create a kind of a slapping effect with the instruments, like a woodpecker. So if you're going around, there's different kinds of sounds. So people play together, and it's really like being in a forest, and it's fun to do. So there's this aspect of play, which I really like to explore. So people are creating the work looks beautiful, but it doesn't really come to life until people really start working together and performing it for themselves. So these are a couple of instruments, cloths, just wood things, hitting our maracas, our little cymbals, and we had a little light effect. So, you know, it was dim, so when they hit it, it would just kind of flimmer. So his idea was to kind of recreate a forest where the light is flimmering through the forest things. And so if they're all put together on these elastic bands, you can see they're very easy to play by pulling them and letting them go. So if you look from above in the museum, you'll see this wonderful composition of all the different instruments being played on vertical and horizontal cables. So there's a lot to do in life to go, a lot to explore. And so the farther you away, the more close you are to somebody, the more kind of intimacy or distance you can explore, you can have and explore as you walk through it. So that was the first one, and then I jumped it up through making a circuit. And so this is the next work. So it's on cables again, elastic cables, and you pull these things. And basically everybody knows what the Doppler effect is when they're sitting at home and suddenly there's a police car, an ambulance goes by, whoa, 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 whoa. So you have this modulation of pitch caused by the speed and distance of the car traveling from the listening point. And so that's exactly what this is. When you pull the speaker and you let it go, it goes back and forth and creates a kind of a bird call thing, although it's just a single sinus tone coming over a loudspeaker. So there it is. And the funny story is that it looks like a face, but when I was in New York, my mom was a waitress in a bowling alley when I was really young. And the bowling balls had these 3 little holes. And so this is kind of a memory of my childhood, you know, has a face. And this piece was done for Asia. And if you look at any kind of Asian design in public, you'll see that they all have faces. So this was very, very welcomed in the museum because it was very friendly and people could pull it and play with it. And so basically in the middle, you have the sound circuit, and then you have the 2 loudspeakers, and the clear plexiglass plate is just the kind of where people pull it and let it go. So, and then this is the placement. You see there's many, many around. And then what's nice is that we talked about the forest. You know, some birds are high up, some are on the ground. So it's for everybody. You know, it has a spatial dynamics for small groups. So you can hear things above, below, and at your earshot level, which is, I think, really nice to do. And basically, this is what happens is when you pull the loudspeaker, it goes back and forth, and it creates basically a bird sound. Like select. But what's nice, if you have 48 of these things and everybody's pulling on them, it's really quite a beautiful thing. So anyway, that's 2 of the works, basically, which use play. One is acoustic and the other one is electronic, but basically they do the same thing. They let the audience play and they're immersed in this wonderful sound world. Okay, they also have a visual aspect, which is, you know, really nice to look at. It's beautiful. So, but it doesn't really, you don't really get the effect until, or the work doesn't really come to life until you participate, which I really like this. Now, this might get a little strange. I studied Marshall McLuhan for a while, and I think he's really a prophet in some ways because he predicted that a single person would control the media enough to affect a political election. He did this in the 60s. And of course, this is Facebook, Donald Trump, all the rest is Cambridge things that went on. So he predicted it. So in the about 2010, I was in Finland, and I did an exhibition based on this idea of McLuhan Church. So here it is. And basically it's out of paper. You can print it out and you fold it together and you put it up on the walls and in the space. It's a blacklight work, which is funny because everybody thinks blacklight is corny. But what's interesting, if you combine it with incandescent light, really beautiful things start happening, and I'll show you how that works. So that's the work when you walk into the space. So this is a bit out, but if you go from above, those tubes with the people on them, those are basically symbols in Europe for the bathroom. So it's a chorus of shit, you know. I'm not against the church. I'm just saying the dogma of media can be quite shitty. So, and if you look above, so you have the different sounds coming out of the tubes like an organ. And so when you walk around, you'll hear the bells to your left or to your right, the soprano. So you're kind of making your own mix out of the music as you go through it. So you can see a visitor's path like that. They would hear the soprano, then the bells, the bass, the tenor, come around, hear more bells and tenor. So it's a nice way to do that. So here you see how it works. It's basically directional audio. It shoots out of the tube, bounces off the ceiling, so it becomes very immersive again. So, and then this is kind of nice. I'm very interested in the sunset and all the colors you can find it, which I'm sure everybody who's involved in painting loves light, and all the colors here are fascinating. But what I discovered is that when you blend incandescent light and ultraviolet light together, you get beautiful light modulations over time. And it's very much equivalent to the sunset. So this was done on a 24-hour clock, so it started coming and going into the daylight. And on the left, you see all these beautiful colors slowly coming in. And so I think it takes away the corniness of black light, and it adds something really quite sensual to the whole thing by blending incandescent light into it. And basically, this is the form of it. It's GOD, called Global Omnipresent Delusion. And basically, what we're sold through media to believe in, okay, to consume, which we all know has become a very serious problem. So basically,
sorry to interrupt for 1 second, Arthur. Someone's asking if you can move the microphone a little further from your mouth so it won't reverberate.
Sure. Is that better? I hope. If it's not, just say that. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so anyway, we take a look at it. It's the steps leading up to this cross. And the cross, if we know the history of the Christian cross, it was just a plus sign where the body and mind were in balance, and that was the idea of the religion. And then, you know, the church came along and said, well, the body should be less important than the mind. And then we started having all these kind of sexual conflicts, right? Because we can't, you know, do too much sexuality, too much body. So they put the lower line longer for the body, so for the mind, so the mind over body. And then when the TV antenna came, they doubled the other side, so they redid the body is more important than that. So that's the kind of the modern cross is the TV antenna today. So, and so the steps would lead up to that. But if you look down, the blind symbol we have today, which people wear in their arm, or you see on this on the lights in Europe, is actually the old symbol for death. And so you see the going upward on the vertical axis, kind of a symbology where the TV controls turn into the death phase. So this is kind of the whole idea behind that one. So, and then here you see the whole installation. It's just one piece to your left is a church, and there's a test pattern to your right. And this might be a little bit offensive. So but anyway, I'll just go through it. I thought we could be this. Now, basically, I took two things, the genital of a woman and the praying of hands. And what I wanted to do is to see how long a person would stand in front of the picture, if it was the folded hands or the genitals, and use that to create the music. So basically, you'd have this pattern. It would test you on where you were orientated, whether praying hands or the genitals. And depending how long you stayed there on which image, it would change the music. So it was kind of a nice way to kind of fool around. You can see the test pattern like that. And then this is just a smaller version. As COVID came, we couldn't do anything in the museum. So we started doing in Windows. So I made a small version of it. And when you scanned in the QR code with your mobile phone, you could hear the music. And I'll just give this a little bit to you if it plays back. Oh, let's try again. Okay. Okay, so this is what you'd see on your telephone, and you'd hear the music coming up. And so this would be similar to walking through the space. You'd hear the bells on your right, the bells on your
Arthur,
left.
sorry, are we supposed to be hearing something?
Yeah, you
Did
are.
you share your sound when you shared your screen?
You'll have to tell me how to do that.
Okay, so you have to get, I think you have to get out of screen share. And then
Okay.
when you get back into screen share.
Mhm. Okay, here's new share. Okay.
So you don't seem to be out of the screen.
Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
So
Good. Okay.
so now when you share the screen at the very bottom, there's a lot of little windows and the share button.
Share
but on the
sound.
lower, yes, exactly.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good tip because I would never have figured it out. Okay.
Good.
But if anybody has a question up to now, I'll take one.
Any
Okay.
questions? This is fascinating. I'm just watching your mind go to all these places.
Yeah. I just hope it's not too bizarre or offensive. I always worry
you know
about
what?
that.
Actually, we had a whole slew of performance artists come and speak, so we're primed for you. Don't worry about it.
That's fine.
Continue.
No, I don't use such imagery often, but I thought in the context of the church and sexuality, that would be very important to really use something that will confront you with those things, you know. So we'll go back to this. Okay, so you get the idea with the music as you go through. Let's continue. Okay, so now we're skipping into a really different world. Where I guess around 2007, 2010, we had innovations in communication device, which we know as our new handies, our smartphone, our mobile savviness. But it really affected the art world in a big way. And I'll show you some of this. So there's different ways to kind of key into the virtual world. There's judicial codes, there's QR codes, and there's image recognition. Everybody knows what a QR code is. Image recognition is when a telephone or a computer vision, a camera recognizes the image and compare it with some other information. A fiducial code is basically, it looks like something, but it's coded. So if we look at that code on the left, we have 2 blacks and another set of 6 blacks. So the code would be 611. And if you had a kind of a XY table and it looked up 611, you'd get that result, okay? So it's just kind of how images are translated into binary code so that computers can read them and react. Okay, but each of these things can be used in a different way and can be fun. So I gave a course for children on how to kind of camouflage themselves so they wouldn't be cyber mobbed anymore with their identities. So basically, by doing this, your Facebook icon could be recognized by a computer. So if you had a friend and he had your key code, he could then watch your Facebook page and the real contents, right? Because anybody looking at your Facebook page would just see nothing. But if you had held the camera over it, then you'd see everything what your friend wanted him to see. And so this is also a bitmapped FB icon, which you could use because it measures the kind of different aspects of light. You see gray, white, black. That's also a way to code, but it's still image recognition. Or you could even bitmap it by putting numbers in there more specifically. Okay, so if you look into those numbers, the white would have a 0 and the darkest would have a 4. So in this little image, we'd have 0, 1, 4, 3, 2. And that would then combine how many zeros do we have, how many 4s do we have. And so we're able to kind of put a code to that image based on how many 4s, how many zeros, how many 3s there are in that image. So that's basically what you would see if you had the camera. Okay, now I don't know how everybody feels about the world we live in. We were talking before about how museums have really narrowed their focus. And one of the reasons why they've narrowed their focus is that they've really joined hands with the art marketing system. And also, in order to save money, they've really made a very narrow focus of artists so that they can share costs for catalog, transport, insurance, and so they can do one show that goes all over the Europe or parts of the world. The problem is that it removes the local social kind of engagement that art museums used to have, because in Europe, for example, we call Kunsthalle was always something local, and local people would have exhibitions and the community would come, and there would be kind of something kind of like a really social, active life in the arts. But over the years, with this really narrow focus on just a few individuals, we've lost all that. And I I think also as when it happens, my personal feeling is that the art has become very, very trivial and banal. And although I'm criticizing major artists here, they can fight back and criticize me. So the dialogue's open. So there was an exhibition called Best Friends in Hanover. And I'll get into this idea of hijacking, stealing space from museums in order to force them to make other decisions. And I'll show you how that works. So basically, this is the Kestnergesellschaft. It's a major museum in Hanover, Germany. And they did an exhibition here. And we wanted to hijack it, or what we say in hijack it, steal it. So what we did is we created a program which would, we lost a slide here, but it would show you the original one. And then we created our own slides. And what we did is we took the kids and we took all the bags from the museum and we created a kind of questionnaire for the kids, and they would question all the employees and all the visitors about what their reactions were. And the handle of the bag would be a smile or a frown or a wiggly, depending on it. And what was nice is the kids really discovered that doing something simple in life can be more fulfilling than having a more responsible job, because everybody they spoke to was a director was in a bad mood. So they always got the frown, and all the people who had the very simple jobs were very happy. So it was interesting. So basically, if you look here, sorry about missing this image here. Okay, here on the left, on the right side, you'll see it's a different image. So when you hold the phone up to it, you get my image. So I'm hijacked the entire exhibition. So you can go through the exhibition with your phone and you'll see all my works, so the works I developed with the children, instead of the works from the artist. So this is a way to hijack a major museum. And so we did this with also Roman Siegner, is a very, very famous Swiss artist.
Just before you go on, so trying to understand how that works. So they had a signage up on the museum, and when someone would hold their phone up, they would see something different. They had that.
Yes, right. So let's say you have an exhibition of photographs from anybody, from Mr. X or Mrs. X. And I wrote an application to recognize all those photos in the exhibition, but to replace them with my own. So you would wander through the exhibition with the iPhone or an iPad or a smartphone or whatever. And as you went through the museum, you wouldn't see the exhibition photos, you'd see mine in the place of the exhibition photos, perfectly aligned and placed. So this is amazing. A way, yeah, that was fun.
Almost a little scary, because if you can do that.
Well, it's not so hard. It's really not so hard. So this was a way we were able to hijack museums and take over entire exhibitions. And we would advertise them, and we would go in and talk about our art. But it was so funny because our discussions in the museum had nothing to do with the paintings or images on the walls, but the ones we were seeing on our phones. And it was really funny. So we we threatened the museums with a letter saying that if they didn't let us in, we would hijack their museums with satellites and then advertise on major art museums that were exhibiting there. So basically, they were scared and they invited us to do what we wanted. So it was fun and it was great. It was a way to force your way into a major museum. So basically, you're looking at a very famous work called the Milky Way. In German, it's called Milchstraße, which means Milk Street. That's the same as Milky Way. And so you're walking down like a street, and then on each side you have the Milky Way. So I worked with children to develop kind of satellite arts, and we would do them in 3D models. And if you cued into our work, you'd see your models floating along his work. And it was really quite beautiful because it was really, their satellites were floating in space, and it was a lovely effect for everybody. And then what was interesting, we decided to use hand scanners, which basically you can scan objects, 3D objects, and using your phone or iPad. And we wanted to kind of steal the sculptures and then kind of reinterpret them. So we took all the kids and we said, okay, we want you to pose or to express yourself, how you feel about the work, or somehow. So we did that, and we scanned them all in, and then we took these sculptures that we made of the scans and we blew them up to 50 meters high, huge sculptures, and put them in the city. And so you would see here that bicycle we scanned in with two people kind of making a kind of pantomime or kind of a scene with it. And here you'll see two kids doing this thing in the middle of the museum. And so
wait,
it was a way.
before you
Sure.
navigate away from that, what were we just looking at? Were those actually huge sculptures?
Right, exactly. So public art stolen from the museum. We stole the museum
So
art and put it in the city.
is this a piece of museum art, the bicycle?
Yes, that's a very famous piece by a Swiss artist, right?
Oh, okay. So wait, first you have to tell us about that, because I don't know about, I feel like an ignorant New Yorker, but that just looked like a bicycle to me. So I didn't realize
well,
it was
basically,
actually
yeah, I know.
art.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a kind of post-Duchampian approach to things. But Roman Signer is a very great artist and is very funny. So basically, if you look at the back, there's this red thing, and that's kind of like a fireworks engine. So you would ignite it, and it would throw you through the city and create this kind of beautiful line throughout the city. So, but then we had two people come. One was a student, and the other was the famous Japanese artist, pose on the bicycle in the museum. And we go with our hand scanners and scan them in. And then we take this, work it out, and then we geotag it with satellites and put it in the city. So people using their phones could go in and see these stolen artworks, so to speak.
Is this,
you know,
2D or 3D? Like, is this a flat
3D.
thing?
You can work, it's 3D, and you can walk around it. You can walk in around it, and it's really
so they
really
look
big.
like 3D people standing there. They really look like
people.
Yeah,
they're low res because we can't do high res in this kind of mobile thing. But I like the effect, the artifacts. I like decay.
I wish the decay is cool, but I wish there was like a video that we could you could show someone walking around it, because it looks very flat in this. It looks like you photoshopped these images.
No, it's not Photoshop. That's a real
I got
photo.
that. Yeah,
So,
that's
and if we look at this one, so this is a brother and sister, and the sister had ballet lessons, so she was kind of doing these poses in the museum. And if you look in the background below his legs, that's a whole nother sculpture that goes around it. So she's posing inside of the sculpture.
How did they stand? Because like she's on one leg, and I know she balanced, but how is that thing? Is it bolted about to the ground?
No. It's just it's fake. It's like projected with a satellite there. As you hold your phone up, you can see it. But if you take your phone away, there's nothing there. But you can go around it. You see.
You mean there really is nothing there?
There really is nothing there. It's just, so to speak, it's tagged, it's positioned there from a satellite. We're
talking like VR in a sense.
Well, like AR, augmented reality.
AR, okay.
Exactly. So it was a way to steal the works from the museum and put them into the city space, and that people could view them for free. They wouldn't have to pay a ticket, so to speak. So it was a way of pirating, another way of hijacking museums,
Amazing. But Olga Alexander says she loves the idea of hijacking a museum show, and Michael Krasowitz says it's like Pokemon, and I get what he's talking about.
Right, exactly. Pokemon is augmented reality. But here, we're dealing with simple commercial technologies, but the people behind these technologies, people I work with, they're quite whizzies, they know what to do. And we could go into some small details which are funny, but I can go on. As another way to explore this concept of play and sound. This is a fiducial work, meaning that it uses stamps. And I worked a lot in Asia, where people love to play with art. They don't like to just kind of sit and look at the wall. So here, this is a piece called a Book of Stamps, and children can take, or adults, anybody can take it, and they can stamp in the book, and the camera will look at what you did and play back the music, kind of a sound environment. So if we look a little bit at this one, you'll see fiducial markers which can be recognized by a computer to do something. You see, you have nature, like if you like John Cage, he liked nature and man-made sounds and nature sounds. So you would have a picket fence or a building scheme there. You'd have like a stone or something that's like plants and things like that.
And you could build them up, and the more natural sounds you made, the more natural sounds you got. The more man-made things you got, the more noise you got. So this was a way to kind of do it. And so when you turned the page, you'd be traveling, so to speak, to a different space sonically. And so these are a close-up of the stamps. You can see they're plexi acrylic glass. And this is how a judicial marker works. You can see the upper left is 6 black spots, the other one at 1, it equals 8. So if I have that sound, that would be sound number 8, and sound number 8 would be paid back, just like on a CD. So I'll give you a little bit of taste of that, how that works. So you get the idea there, how that works. You had a concert hall sound, you had some birds, some water, some chimes. And so that's how that works. And it's a lot of fun. I've been working on it for 10 years. It uses 2 computers. It's highly complicated, but I've always tried to do my best to make it sound natural. But it's not an easy task. So, and as technology changes, you always get sideswapped by some kind of change in technology you can't deal with. But anyway, let's move forward. Since you're in New York, I thought I'd do a New York piece. This is called Metro Next. I don't know if you were in New York when this was in New York, but I had an exhibition in Grand Central Station, and this is kind of fun. So this is the subway that goes to Zurich in Grand Central Station. So we built this, and it really does go to Zurich in a funny way. So you can look at it very closely, and it says Metronext Plus Grand Central, Zurich meets New York with service to Zurich. Okay, so this is the idea of virtual travel. Like this, we're having like a virtual meeting. So this is kind of a nice way to do this. This was a very, very expensive project. If you want to rent Vancouver Hall or something like that, it's like $20,000 a day. So this went on for 2 weeks, so add it up. So anyway, my brother is in New York architecture, and he's the person who refurbished and redesigned Washington Square Park, Central Square Park. So he knows a lot about New York City history and how to do it. So we gave him the contract to build the station itself based on plans in New York. So you can see these plans that were done. Everything's totally authentic, taken from different parts of, different subway stations. And so you can see how this is Canal Street and how it's all put together. The designs are so beautiful, and just dealing with all these small details was really fun. You can see more here. And then this is kind of the signage that I did. This was Metronext Plus Grand Central. Used the original colors, the New York subways, the original fonts, which were Swiss fonts actually. And it says with transit to Zurich. So, and then the artists that I exhibited, because I work as a kind of collaborator, and we took these are from Zurich, these advertisement poles, and I put them in the middle of the Grand Central. People knew what artists were there. There's one famous there, H.R. Giger. He's from the Aliens guy, who was fun to work with. It was the last piece he did. I worked with him, and then he died. And so basically you can read this, all you do is scan this in, and you can see a whole collection of artworks So this is how some were developed. We took these kind of geodesic balls and different platonics, and we made patterns and we folded them back together, but put inside, this is by H.R. Giger, we put inside the pattern so that you could go inside the ball, which was floating middle and Grand Central, and kind of have a gallery in your head. So you'd see your head would be inside of that. You'd see all these kind of rotting babies, you know, which H.R. Giger is famous for. Or if you wanted to see more like phantasmagoric or fantasy works, you could QR in and go through the different artists. This is a New York artist, Will Pappenheimer, and there were fish floating around and flowers and all kinds of things, middle of the subway. So it was a really nice way to travel. Now, this is the most key part of this, was to be able to travel to Zurich. And what you're looking at is the subway, but it doesn't go down. So you can stand in front of it and look into the piece there. And basically you can see Auguststrasse, which is the main part of Zurich, the most beautiful part, reconstructed in 3D. And we were talking a little bit about the artifacts from the pirated art from the museum, how the girl standing in the ballet pose and the guy with the bicycle. It's something I really like. Now I could clean that up, but I like this effect. This is part of what you would see in the Grand Central Station. This is actually Zurich. So you'd be able to see and explore Zurich in Grand Central. And so I don't know how technical you guys know, but there's something called photogrammetry. I sent a friend to a single street in Zurich, and he made over, I think, several thousand photos. And then we took a software program who sewed them all together. And this is from above. This is from above. So this is the street when it's all put together with all the artifacts and you know, mishaps. But I think it's kind of beautiful. It's haunting. You know, it's kind of like seeing a strange place in a dream. And so you could put this in Grand Central and Vancouver Hall and Vanderbilt Hall, sorry. And then you can see what it would look like when you're looking through there. So it kind of does something really funny to it. And it's something I really like to have done. So there was a really large project which includes modern technologies with budgets that usually nobody has access to. So in the end, I think it was like several $100,000. But it was really fun. And what I really liked, disregarding all the technologies, everybody loved to stand in front of the fake metro station and have a selfie made. So I really liked that everybody came together and said, oh, let's get a selfie. So it was something I thought was really good for the general public. And it warranted it to do it in Grand Central.
This is amazing. And I have a feeling I'm not alone with all the artists here wondering how this was funded. Because artists all think about funding all the time, right? And you're talking about $20,000 a day.
Well, 100,000, yeah. But I mean, basically about funding, the problem is that if you're on the lower ranks of the world, it's very hard to do anything. Mm-hmm. But the most powerful combination in the world of arts is an ambassador and an artist. Okay, the ambassador has access to politics, and politics has access to industry. If the artist is famous, he's representing a country. And so you have all the combinations. So the thing is to be able to kind of work with politicians for national interests. And if you can do that, then they'll fund anything. And I think this is the case here, because this was funded by the Swiss Embassy, the University of Zurich, the Présence Suisse, the Technical University where Einstein went, the University of Zurich, the tourist industry in Switzerland. So you had all the major factors there. And for them to give 25,000 each was not a problem. So, and the metro station cost itself $25,000 just to build. Mm-hmm. And it was built by a Hollywood studio designer. It was really officially perfectly made.
It looks quite authentic and beautiful. And I can't believe I didn't see it when it was there.
It was there for like 2 weeks, that's it, 2014, I think. But right. Yeah, it was a great project. It was really fun.
It's amazing.
So let's move on.
Okay, but before you do, maybe we'll just look at a few of the questions. And one you just
Sure.
clarified for us. Someone said, are you calling it
Oh,
hijacking or hijacking? And now we
Right.
can see that it's hijacking.
It's hijacking. Yeah.
Eileen Hoffman says the video is very helpful to get a real taste of your work and all its complexities. Olga Alexander asks, is there an open source of any programs you use?
Well, that's a big discussion. It's like, my truth is, if you really want to enjoy your life, don't get involved with technologies. Nam June Paik said it really quite. If you really want to hate something, become an electronic artist. So there's this love-hate relationship between technologies. And I think it's like being in an endless series of bad marriages.
Wow. And
because
so
it's just,
and that's
because
how
everything
you
breaks
feel?
and then they're gone. Well, I mean, that's how it is you develop a
Mm.
piece for a technology and then a year later that technology is gone and nobody gives a fuck about it, So this has happened and all the works you're looking at are no longer possible outside of the book of stamps because I froze them on the computers. But it's interesting. So as far as, developing your own technologies is that I suggest just using commercial technologies and doing whatever you can with them because, they're very powerful, and learning to code and all the rest of that. It's better to have good friends, or a good checkbook. So, I mean, it's just, it depends what you want to explore, but you're working with technology is no better than working with a pencil. So it's really a personal choice. But I wanted to do certain things on social levels and have impact, and I did it like that. So this was it. I think it's harder to have impact when you're doing oil paintings or something like that, because the society is so involved with their technologies, and the only way to get their attention is either to pull it away and dump paint on them, or to just put something on their phone that they can't, ignore. So it's up to you. I mean, I don't know what people want to do. I mean, I have no rhyme or reasons in my life or my development. I just think it's really important to follow your intuition, even if it runs you into a wall, because the wall is a good place to kind of rethink your life. It's like, I had a psychiatrist once. He said, well, the only important thing is mental health is that you always choose a different wall to hit your head on. And not always the same one. So I think that's a good thing, so change genres if you want to do that. But anyway, let's learn about hijacking.
Okay,
so I like hijacking public memorial sculptures and what we call in German Denkmals. This is a clock in Germany, and I hijacked it by putting these films over the glass parts, and people could scan in the QR code or read about the works. And so this is a complex piece, but just you can see it's already covering the clock and people can't look into it. So it's already kind of a, intervention, and so you can look at it here. So inside the clock, there was a kind of a dirty video going on. If you look through the peek holes, you could see it. It wasn't really dirty, but I mean, it was fun. And so you look through the peek holes and you see this dirty video. Or you could scan in these QR codes and see the artworks. And I use the anonym sign because all of this is, although supported by many people, it's completely illegal. So, okay, I think I lost some images. Anyway, this is a construction of two pieces which I use. So this is textures. This is the sky, which is a wing. This is the hand. And this is I've loved the patterns of jet fighters from the 1950s to the 1970s. They had these really beautiful patterns. And so I think I can show a piece here. Okay, good. So anyway, this is this stuff in action, right? So this is just a low level thing. You're looking through your phone and these things are combining and floating down. You can see the jet engines or the wall. You can see the clocks running backward, and you get very immersed. And if you look up, they're all coming from the sky. And so this is AR, it's at its best. And then now you'll see this kind of beautiful prismatic soap colors and sky. And the idea is that if you're a Kurt Vonnegut fan like I am, this is about time.
And these are the Tralfamadorians coming to save the earth, right? And so what's nice is that to be able to have a dimension where all time folds in itself. And so you can, I think I can run it again. You'll see that the prism is constructed out of different daytimes. Like here you have, morning light, and then suddenly you have the sky coming in, which is daytime, and then night will come in, you see to your right. So it will affect the kind of background of these floating images. And then this clock comes in, which runs forward and backward. So you have images that combine, to do that. So that's AR. So just give you a taste of how that works. Now, we are stars too. I like to always think I'm nobody, and I like to give people a chance to kind of work with me and to get some recognition. So I created a piece called, this is the letter which I used to threaten all the museums, that if they didn't participate, I would hijack them and do my own work. And so I get a response by many museums that they would participate. So I was able to run the festival through 5 major museums in Germany. So what I did is I wanted to create a kind of Hollywood star walk. I don't know what you really call it. And what we did is we took these stars and we put the names of the artists and the QR codes which they needed to enter into the works. And we put them all over the city so that people could kind of have this, walk of fame, and each artist was considered famous, and they could QR into the work, and these works would pop up in front of them. So this was my way of kind of not curating, but kind of producing and cooperating with other artists. I don't like to be curating because I don't like curators, because they act as gatekeepers. I know maybe some of you are curators, but I don't like gatekeeper curators who say, oh, only these artists will get into my doors. I don't like that. So I like to have a conversation with everybody about art, because I think it's an important part of our society, how we express ourselves creatively. So I like to invite people to join us, although the artist you're looking at right now is very famous. So anyway, this is the map you would go through and see in the city. So you'd be able to see all these works somewhere in the city. And this is what you would need to do it. And I built a bicycle to take people around and get drunk and watch the artworks at the same time. It has Wi-Fi, electricity, and champagne. So, and then this is some of the works you can look at through your phone. This is a Japanese work in homage to a Buto. And if you touch the phone, the lanterns go into the sky and disappear in the homage. This is a work that I did with another German artist with a church. So nudity in the church again. It's my way to jab them again. But this is a 3-dimensional cross, and it ecce homo. It's basically, if you want to follow traditions in painting, what's really interesting is you get really challenged. And if you go the history of some Christian motifs or whatever culture you want to go, and you're really shocked how much you really have to think to be able to participate at that level to create an artwork, So, and then this was a piece called We Are Butterflies. I went around the world creating workshops with children about environment, blah, blah, blah. And this is the Holocaust Monument in Hanover, so that people think about the future through their children and not through all the horrible things that have happened. So think positive in a good way, and they're beautiful. So children could add their faces to these butterflies, and they would fly all around the city. And I think that's nice. And also they'd be able to decorate their faces to create the textures. So that was nice. Another example of something between clay and non-clay or virtual clay placed inside a lake. So there's quite beautiful things you can see. This is the Tralfamadorian work. You can see it's coming down with the beautiful colors from the sky. This is a piece by Regina Frank, which she sits on this beautiful carpet, which if you look at the carpet very closely, it's all of the natural disasters around the world, and she's floating in a park. So it's very beautiful to see. And this is a space art piece, just space junk. I've done a lot of research on space junk recently, and this is a piece I did with a German artist. I mean, you'd have to really see it to get into it. This is the mushroom piece that just pops up and covers the museum in mushrooms. I really like that. And they're beautiful mushrooms anyway. And they grow and they grow and they grow. And the museum's covered in mushrooms and there's nothing else to see but mushrooms. And if you go through it, the overlapping of the transparencies creates a prismatic effect, which is quite beautiful when it's juxtaposed across realities. This is the virus piece. This was interesting. We'd go into museums, suck all the paintings out, and then they would be infected with the artworks and then float around the city. Well, I mean, it's kind of funny, but was fun. And then we worked with some Chinese artists, and they created a real life figure of Mao Zedong with us. And so you could go into Hanover and visit the crystal coffin of Mao Zedong, and it's a real shot of his face from Beijing. So you could go in, and it's very beautiful. You look up, you can go in and around and look into it because it's like a pagoda. It's very beautiful with lots of details. I guess that's all I had to say. Yeah, I guess that's it. I have one more video we can end with.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Okay, well, let's see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. Maybe it's there. Oh, here it is. So I guess this is kind of a cheap video, but my idea as a child was fascinated with flying, and I think that's something that's followed me through all my life. I really like floating things. So working in zero gravity spaces is really interesting, and I term this on becoming an artronaut, I mean a person who travels to different worlds through the arts. And this is kind of a nice video. It's a diary from my childhood juxtaposed over a three-dimensional lettering system. Okay, and I think you'll get it if I just play a little bit of it.
You are a small child, and you throw a ball as hard and as high as you can. And with eyes focused on it, you see it receding in size, and you ponder in wonderment and ask yourself if it will ever come down.
You're having a little...
Suddenly, and from nowhere, it reappears, at first slowly and faintly, but it's there and full of life again, coming to that final stop in the cradle of your hands. It's summer, and the trampoline is set up in the backyard. You know that it is ready to go, and you know that you're ready for takeoff. So you wander out back and climb into just the right state to be catapulted into beyond the heavens you know. It is never the first bounce that does it, nor is it the second bounce, but is always the third bounce that ignites the mind and pulls the body beyond and frees you for an instant from the down and up of the all day, every day. You are a kid, maybe a teenager. You are thumbing through the books in the house. They're not yours, but just part of the family's things that are just there, and most of the time just for the dust that collects in the house. You come to a page that brings the restless sound of pages turned to a stop. A chair, a candle, and a stream of water accompany a man in flight to nowhere particular. It is not on the moon, and no one is wearing a spacesuit, but everything is frozen in time, neither going up nor going down, but lingering in that anonymous trampoline bounced thrown ball space beyond the ups and downs you know. You are employed. Maybe you're the pilot, maybe you're the steward, and maybe you are just one of the passengers on the up in a plane that is not used to get from one place to the next, but to bring you to that nowhere space where the ball you threw up as a child is, where the third trampoline bounced to nowhere brought you, and where you suddenly remember the one book page you got stuck on, where the cat, the water, the chair, and the man, who you know is artist Salvador Dali, stood still, suspended in space, moving neither up nor down. As the plane reaches its peak ascent and the warning signal lights flash, you realize that you are neither the pilot of the plane, nor the steward serving and soothing, nor the patcher gazing out in the blue void that the window stages, for you are simply just you, and just about to soar like an astronaut as the Boeing 727 you are on enters weightlessness in a dive towards that same earthly paradise that it took off from. You float, you flip, and you soar like an astronaut. Up is down and down is up, and all of the corners of the room are equal as the floor, and ceiling no matter to you, to anyone. Everything is equal to everything else, and love becomes possible between everything and anything, between the ball and the book, the trampoline and the sky, the water and the chair, the cat and its non-landing, and the man in himself. It's zero gravity, and although it's just part of the job you are doing, you stop thinking like the scientist you are, and in the most dreamless but vivid state of mind that can be had between heaven and earth, you become something new, and suddenly it is all there again. The ball sitting in the sky, the child trampling into nowhere, the chair stuck in flight, the water as warm ice, the cat on all fours never to land, and Salvador Dali whispers to you, "Welcome to space, my dear friend, and congratulations, you are now an astronaut, stuck on a page from your childhood, like a story in a book that has not yet been read."
Okay. Okay.
All right.
It's just a kind of a sketch of a piece that's not professionally done, but I like it. You know, I liked working with three-dimensional letters and doing this kind of love thing again, and just kind of new way.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's everything.
Wow, I feel you say that's everything, but I have to tell you, I feel like we've just scratched the surface, and there's so much there. I'll just read comments from people. Babs Reingold says those artifacts are beautiful, and the fake subway piece is fantastic. Jenna Lash says you have an amazing mind. I think we all agree. Olga Alexander had to leave, but she loved it and will catch the video. Sandra Indig loved the idea of covering a museum in mushrooms. Yeah, that was pretty special. Do we have any other questions from people who are here? Michael Krasowitz, I recently had an opportunity to see Microsoft AR Tech. Is this something you're interested in exploring?
At the moment, let's see, what am I doing? At the moment, because COVID's here, I kind of thought I would just kind of start writing music again, and just, because you can work with musicians and in the small groups, and I think what's been interesting in Switzerland is that you start hearing people playing music again because they have to stay home, spending more time with their children. And I think that was kind of an impulse to say, hey, why don't we go back to our intimate selves and do the simple things? As far as technologies are concerned, at the moment, I'm interested in exploring anything, provided it's not too expensive and doesn't take too much of my time. So so what I'm interested in technologies is there's a couple of programs or software things out there that make, it's one called Arteviva. It's an Austrian company. You can use the app to create overlays on your images. And it's very easy to use, and I think it's very effective. And then there's another American-French company called Hooverly, which is doing great jobs for AR, and you can kind of play sculptures like you've seen my work done. And so those technologies.
You started out as a musician originally?
Well, I still am. I'm a
right,
hidden
so
musician.
how you're a hidden musician. So did you do all these things at the same time, or did you start out doing music and then?
Well, there's an interesting question. There's what brought you to Switzerland from New York City? Basically, I can be American critical, but I can say that there's good aspects of American culture, is that if I can say we have no problem about getting involved and getting something done, where European society is very hesitant and has to plan everything out. So, I mean, that's a big difference there, and I think that's important to notice. So, when I was living in New York, I realized very quickly that it was very hard to exist as a classical musician and writing serious music. So I took the opportunity to leave. And basically, I was approached by a woman who said, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I said, "Well, this and that." She says, "Well, I'll pay for it for 4 years. Do what you want." And she was Swiss, and she says, "Go to Switzerland." And so that's how I got here. And then I realized that, Switzerland, it's a terribly corrupt country. We have all the dirty money in the world here. So, but at the same time, it's a small country and it's Central Europe. So you can get out very quickly into the real world and do that. So, that's the answer how I got here. Through
So you had a
patron, yes,
patron.
right. I mean, I loved my life in New York. I was friends with Billy Name, Andy Warhol's friend, and also some of the John and Jeannie Fitzgerald from the Fluxus times, and a lot of musicians around the Velvet Underground and things, living upstate New York and Poughkeepsie and things like Pauline Oliveira's. So I really loved that, but it's very, very difficult to survive in the arts in America without state subventioning or foundations which will support you, which are common practices in Europe. So, I mean, that's a toss-up. But as far as the concern of genre, it's never about the genre itself. It's what you feel inside yourself. I mean, what are you trying to express through oil painting, through your watercolors? What thoughts do you have? So it's really about being a creative human being, right? To express the creativity that's in you with others, and hopefully together, or to make some kind of impact in society. That's why we can go back to our first question: art, science, and society. You can't make art without science, because even if you look at oils and the history of oil painting and acrylic, it took a lot of smarts to create those colors. Try mixing your own colors in the way Rembrandt did. Well, you're going to know a lot of things and do a lot of work. So, and then society is, what are we doing it for? If you have children or grandchildren, or you somebody you love, it's obviously that you have to be engaged in order to make a difference for those people around you. Because if you don't, you're just Frank Stella.
You mentioned Rembrandt, and of course, in that era and the Renaissance era, there was much less of a division between the arts and the scientists. And look at someone like Da Vinci, and he certainly plumbed every aspect of his.
Yeah, right. Well, there's a difference between Rembrandt and Da Vinci's lives, but
well, yes, that is a very big difference. But Rembrandt was close enough to Da Vinci in year that I thought I could hop over there. Before we go on, I'm instructed to repeat that we are Artist Talk on Art. We're here every Monday night, and while our talks are free, your contributions are appreciated. We want to thank all of you who have contributed up until now and who will in the future. And of course, we thank all of you for attending. And I think everyone is as fascinated as I am by your entire presentation. So you had this wonderful opportunity and you went for it, because who wouldn't? And you ended up staying in Switzerland.
Yeah, I love money and the arts, I guess. But I had a nice experience when I was just about to leave New York. I didn't know if I should go. And there was a famous Fluxus artist, Dick Higgins. I don't know if anybody knows him. And so I went to him and I said, Dick, should I go or should I stay? And he goes, well, just go, be a very bad student, and you can always come back. So I took it as advice, and I enrolled in the music academy, and I was a terrible student because, either you do what your teacher wants or you do what you want. And the best teachers recognize that and let you do what you want and they offer their guidance on a professional level. So I took his advice and I just never ended up coming back, although, I love Hudson Valley landscape painting. I love the music of the 60s in New York. I think there's very hard to get away from New York culture. I don't think I would want to do that. But
you still have family here, right? You said your brother is here?
Yeah, I
So-
have my brother's in New York, my sister's in New York,
Mhm.
but my mom is German, so my father's Czech. So I mean, it's one of those things like,
Hmm.
you know, where are your roots? I have some relatives here in Germany and many in America. So I
Mhm.
mean, I speak the languages fluently. So you know, I would like to go back and forth, but you know, I must say, I mean, the political climate in America is better now. I mean, I just didn't want to touch down with Donald Trump being president. It's my personal attitude. I'm sure some people find him good, but I didn't, and it's a personal thing, and I just didn't. It's like when Margaret Thatcher was in the British government, some people left the country. So it's just a personal thing, you know. But as far as culture is concerned, you know, I do appreciate everything that goes on in New York very much, and a lot of the artworks you saw today, Will Pappenheimer, are great artists. They're truly great artists living in New York and doing wonderful things. And that's, I think, and I've flown everybody over here for the last 15 years. So it's, you know, that's the way I communicate with in America now, is having people come here. Because I could fly them over and set them up and offer them shows and collaborate with them, you know, because life's boring if you're just doing your own work, you know. And that's also the difference between art and music, is that an artist will spend a lot of time in front of his painting, stepping back only a few meters, but he's really inside it. But musicians can't do that because they have to coordinate and communicate with others to get their work done. So there's a big difference there. And I think that's how that comes to play in my work, is that I want people to kind of engage with it and create it together. So I think that comes from working as a musician.
Right. So do you
I
know
wanna-
Todd? Well, 1 second, hold that thought. But I just do you know Todd Mackover?
Sure.
MIT?
He's famous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he's famous. So when my children were young, they took part in a program he did called Hyperscore, which was a way of having anybody could compose with a very fun program that he created. And so he enlisted children to try it out. My children were involved. He had musical instruments that were related, that were also part tech, part you know, music.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
MIT is great. And Todd
I couldn't
Mackover
help
has
but
done-
think of that as you were talking about the work you're doing.
Now,
with
recently, a
children.
friend of mine has been working with him, a Korean violinist, who's trying to join North and South Korea. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah. But
Really wish him good luck for all of our sakes on that
well,
score.
you know,
Yeah.
it's just China. If China doesn't want it, it will never happen. If China doesn't care, it will. You know, because the Koreans, I mean, they're the same. They don't like the division, but you know,
Right.
it's like East and West Germany.
Germany.
It was stupid, you know, but the cultures change within 50 years. The Korean language is different in the North and in the South now. And so is the cultures. I mean, in North Korea, they eat people, and then in South Korea, they eat dogs. I mean,
I think in
Just
America,
to be,
we've got different cultures too.
yeah. So that's about all I can say. But anyway,
as we wrap up here, Babs, did you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment going back. First of all, thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
And enjoyed it. And I wanted to just go back to a moment because when you were talking about the difference of working there versus the United States, and it brought me back to a presentation that I'd gone to by Christo, where he was talking about the piece that he had finished in Italy, and where that was the suspended walkway to the island in Italy. And he was saying how in the United States, it takes him years and years and years to get these, the permissions and all of the steps that he has to go through to create a piece. And in Italy, from start to finish, I think it was done within a year. And they were, in terms of rules and regulations, oh, you want to do that? Great. It was kind of this go have at it. And he was saying how much better he liked dealing with the Europeans because there wasn't that all of those rules and regulations put on. And I if I'm mistaken, I thought I heard you saying sort of the opposite, that you feel
Well,
like I don't know if that's the difference between being in Switzerland versus also doing something in Italy. I don't know. And then I have one other comment. For some reason, your shirt reminds me of your QR codes and all of your works, especially in the beginning. And I wondered if you chose that shirt on purpose.
No, yeah, I just it's the only one that I have clean, but I do like it. Yeah, that's true. I like black and white profiling. It's something because if you're not, I mean, I'm not a painter, so I have this kind of rather primitive approach to visuals. I think, I like to keep things in silhouettes and possibilities and use less depth with color, but that's because there's just limitations I have. But I think that's a perceptual factor. But getting back to the politics of arts, I mean, first of all, Christo chose to live in Manhattan, right? He's an East European from origin. So he did the Central Park piece. So but as far as, what I think is that it's more commonplace in Europe because they're smaller countries to create these things because every government knows that these things bring a lot of tourists and a lot of money and they're part of European culture. European culture is celebrating the arts. So there's a lot of that. I mean, Christo did a piece here and it was done within just a couple of months by Biocon Foundation. And we have another couple of pieces done in the Italian part. So I think it's just part of the cultural practice, but governments are divided into left and right, and the right tend not to want to support the arts where the left does. I don't know why that is, but it's true. But I think it's just a general practice in the arts world in Europe that politicians do communicate through culture. So I think, and in America, I mean, comparing Italian law to American law, I mean, Italian law is much more complex. There's always a reason not to do something in Italian law. And I think in New York with the fire codes, it's quite difficult. From my brother, who says that if you want to build something, it's almost impossible. If you want to rip something down, it's impossible. If you want to renovate something, it's impossible. So, I mean, all these little laws that are in place, there's tricks to get by them, but I think depends who you are and who's motivated to show you. I'm sure if, like Obama, he celebrated the arts and he got a lot of great pictures and paintings and fashion done. So it depends, but I don't feel sometimes that it's just not general practice in the United States to create large public artworks and to celebrate them. I think it's difficult. I'm not quite sure, but I have a different impression. I mean, these things happen every single day here. So in America, I'm not quite sure.
How long have you been? How long have you been in Switzerland?
I left basically American life when I was 15. I started as a flute player, and I started doing concerts in Europe, and I always spoke German, so I just decided to change. And then I went back for BA. I had a kind of a nervous breakdown because I didn't want to be a flute player anymore, and I lost an international competition, which I deserved to lose, but not really, because everything's fixed anyway. So I just had a nervous breakdown and drove through Boston for like 5 hours in a car and then decided to skip out. And the only way to get over that was to change. I didn't speak English anymore while I lived in New York. I just spoke German. So it was a way to kind of change my brain. And then I left once I met the possibility of leaving through the Metzit for my patron. So that's what helped me a lot. So I think.
How old were you by that point when you met the patron?
Mid-20s.
Oh, wow.
Mid-20s.
So,
It's been a while.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it was a nice start. It's nice to have support. I think it's really important.
That's
Although, I mean,
absolutely true. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
We all make it however we can, whatever support we can get. So this has been a very fascinating, excellent presentation, which
Well,
I
I'm
could
glad you like it.
see
I like the
going on.
questions, yeah.
Yeah. But as we have to wrap up, I'm just wondering how people can learn
I
more.
sent Barry a rather involved mail with links, but which I can accompany. I have a new book out. If people are interested in that, they'll see a completely different side of me, but
Mhm.
you know, that never stops. I have a friend who's kind of like a Nobel Prize winner in South Korea, but the prize for Koreans is called the Home Prize, and he's a very famous guy. And he met some of my students in New York, and they were talking about me in detail. And he says, "Well, who are you talking about?" And he couldn't believe that I was the same person he knew that they were talking about. So it was kind of funny. You can see a completely different part of me. Well, so what I'll do is if I can get to the mail, I'll send it in the chat box.
Oh, great.
I just, things are a bit slow with the, let me just see.
Okay.
I never
While
know
you're
what.
doing that, I'm going to put some of our ATOA information to the chat as well.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I think I got it. Okay. Okay.
Oh, I think I'm seeing another one of our board members. Is that Roberta who just came in?
Oh, she missed it.
She missed it, but luckily it's been recorded. So.
Oh, right. I hope, well, cut any nasty words or things or comments that will put me in jail out.
I want to take the opportunity to say that unfortunately I saw part of the presentation only, but thank you for sharing your work, and also thank you for mentioning Pauline Oliveras. And I encourage people to find out about her. She was really special in the arts, and I met her in person. I also live in the Hudson Valley.
Oh, okay.
So I had the pleasure to meet her, and I'm glad that you met her too. She was very, very special. So if people want to know like a great in the arts, just to research about her.
Yeah. It's she's gone, but she's well remembered. I mean, she spent. It was lovely to visit her in her house there. Dick Higgins was there, Fritz Hauser, a lot of Linda Montana. There were many artists there.
Yes, I know Linda. She also is special. We have quite a few characters in the Hudson Valley that are making a big mark, and Linda Montano also is very.
I know Linda Montano too.
Yes.
From when I put stuff together at Franklin Furnace, when I co-curated a show at Franklin Furnace.
Yeah, she's really amazing, and Pauline was very special. She really continued her own thing, no matter what. It was really her career was very special.
Right. I knew her as a teenager when we would show up with punk bands completely drunk to her concerts, but she just let you in and you realized everything was okay, provided you loved music or you were there for the music. It was not a problem. And I really think it was fun.
She played until very late in her life, really.
Well, that's important, I think. But if anybody has an opportunity for me in New York, I'd love to come back.
Okay.
Unless you ask, you never know. I mean,
we'll put out the word too.
Put out the word.
You never know.
Because I just heard Franklin Furnace because it's something I love. I remember the older performance from Karen Finley there. So, which were great, controversial but wonderful.
Well, I know Martha Wilson very well. I put together a show with another artist at Franklin Furnace, so I know her. It would be interesting. Because they no longer obviously have their own space, but they still sponsor all kinds of performance pieces and work. So that is interesting.
I love performance art.
how can people contact you if they?
I put it all in there.
It's all in the chat. I see it now. Yes. Okay. And we'll put some of that into the comments.
Here's a
that we-
one address, and then
Oh,
I mean, if you Google me, you'll find that I'm a completely
Yes.
schizophrenic, and you won't recognize me. But that email
kind
will
of
get to me
noticed
all the
that.
time.
Yes. I did.
And I
Okay.
just wanted to also mention, it's interesting because I also know a couple of classical composers who ended up, one in particular, Shambles Giobi, who's a classical composer, ended up becoming an artist, and that's what he's doing now. It's kind of fascinating, that jump over between music and the visual
Right.
arts. And you know, so I've recently found out I have a cousin in just outside of Zurich, Switzerland. So someday I'll come. If I come, I'll look you up.
Oh, please do.
And-
Zurich
yeah,
is fun.
Babs, you're mentioning that brings me back to the very beginning of your talk, Art. And I loved your installations with the rubber
band, yeah,
rubber bands
elastic
and-
cords, yeah.
and how they were music and they were like drawing, and you related them at the same time.
Yeah,
and
those were
that
made
was-
possible. Interesting,
neat.
made possible by 3M tape, because 3M produces such incredible products, tape and glue. I mean, it can really take a lot of
All
pressure.
right.
So you can
Plug
put
for
100.
3M.
I don't know how many pounds on vertically, but if you knock them horizontally, they fall off. It's quite an amazing technology. So
Amazing.
yeah, I love those works.
So-
I've been working on another one, but
Excellent. Bring it to
yeah.
New York. We'd love to see it. But right now we have to say goodbye. It was 7:30.
okay, it was fun.
But thank you so much.
Oh, it's
thanks to
1:30 in the
everyone.
morning here.
Oh
So
my gosh. And now you're energized. I hope you can get to sleep.
it was a lovely to present and talk. I love
really
talking
was
and then seeing who people are.
fantastic.
Anyway, if
This
you're all
was great.
artists, have a nice productive life and time.
Thank you
And that's
so
important.
much.
Okay,
And
ciao.
who knows, we may meet again. Ciao.
Okay, ciao.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
All
Bye.
right, bye.